All right, everybody, welcome back to the Adventure RX podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nick Anderson, owner of Pinpoint Physical Therapy in Rocky River, Ohio. Today, I'm super excited to have on Vince Rucci. He is a friend now, owner of the Vertical Runner shoe store in the Cleveland area, along with being one of the race directors of the Western Reserve Race Series, a lot of ultras and longer distance running, especially with trail running. Very cool stuff, Vince. Thanks for your time today, and
Thanks for having me.
hopefully we have a fun chat. What's going on this coming weekend? You said you got a couple events coming up.
So it's our annual Labor Day weekend event that we have at Camp Manitowoc here in Peninsula. It's Leave No Trace Half Marathon and Mini Haha 15K and 5K. So we'll have, between all the events, we'll have about 400 participants joining us in Peninsula, Ohio this weekend, and put on a great event for them. So we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, your guys' events are always great. The big one every year is the Burning River Ultra. I was a volunteer for that, one of the aid station captains. We had a lot of fun. It was
They did an
certainly,
amazing job. It was great to have you there.
yeah, it was fun. Tell us more about that event and tell us more about, the Western Reserve as a whole, if people don't know what you guys are all about.
Well, next year will be a big one for Burning River. It's our 20th. So
Awesome.
it's going to be another amazing year. And in addition to that event, which is by far our largest scale event, we host another 26 races a year, ranging anywhere from 5K to 50K. We're pretty much busy all season long. Our race calendar begins in January and ends in December. So we've got something, if you want to sweat and be outside in shorts and short sleeves, or if you want to, brave the elements and be out there and, single digits and doing your thing in the wintertime, we've got that for you too. So we take a lot of pride in all of our events here in Northeast Ohio, that we really cater to the seasons and people get to really experience everything that our area has to offer, which is pretty amazing. You can't beat fall here in Northeast Ohio. It's
Sure.
by far our favorite time of year. But, just to see how everything changes and goes through its seasonality is pretty awesome. And how much the trails and everything changes. You could be putting an event on in the same location in the spring and then be there in the fall. And people are like, wait a minute, we were here in the spring.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's awesome. Never bored, never get tired of being out there enjoying the outdoors.
Yeah, I think Cleveland has a lot of great outdoors to offer as well. Our summer is relatively short, but we have all four seasons. I'm a winter athlete in the winter doing skiing. It's a shame that I think more people don't get out, even if the weather's imperfect or it's a little cool out. So I think it's great that you guys offer those events all year. Offer events for every flavor of mileage and season. So it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, and then for myself personally, in the wintertime, I have running snowshoes. So to me, I
Nice.
look forward to those conditions being appropriate to be able to recreate differently and enjoy the trails in a different way than you normally get to experience them. So I'm right there with you, like bring on the winter sports too.
For sure. What's your training looking like nowadays? Being a business owner, being the director of Western Reserve, how much time are you able to put into the training side of things?
I mean, the nice thing is that, because of the nature of the job, you do get to go out to check out the trails. You do get to run the trails. You get to mark the course, all things like that. And then outside of that, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call, the running that I do training. I would more now call it more of an escape. It's that
Sure.
time where
Yeah, I love that.
you don't have to necessarily answer your phone, although sometimes I find myself caving in and actually answering it while I am running.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of my escape. In addition to the events and the stores, I have my wife Holly, and then we have 2 kids, and they're both young athletes. So our daughter's a high school cross country runner, and right now our son's in middle school football. So,
Nice.
making sure that you're trying to align everything and fit as much of their stuff into the schedule as well is really important to me. So it's a balancing act. I don't think, there's ever the perfection in that balancing act, but I try to keep my focus on making sure that I'm always trying to give the attention to everybody in my life, whether that's, the people at our events, the people I organize events with, my friend Jim Christ and I who at Western Reserve Racing, the people at the store. I think as long as everybody knows that you're doing your best to give them the attention that they deserve, then hopefully, that provides you less anxiety to think that you're not coming through for somebody in your life.
For sure. And I think that comes across with the events you host, along with the vertical runner process. I recommend patients. Patients ask me about shoes all the time. I'm like, look, go to the experts that do this every single day.
Yeah.
It's tough when I see orthopedic stuff every day. You guys deal with runners and shoe fitment and insoles every single day. What is the process like if someone has never been into your store? What does that process look like? Maybe they're a new runner, maybe they're a semi-experienced runner like myself.
Yeah.
What does that look like when they come in and like, hey, I want a new pair of shoes?
Well, the first thing is that what a lot of stores like ours, I'll use a pun here, run into is there is a level of making people comfortable to come into a store like this, because a lot of people do not view themselves as a runner, or even if they're active, they don't view themselves as an athlete. So breaking down those barriers to making sure that when somebody walks through the door, that the treatment they receive, whether they're training for an ultra marathon, or whether they're just coming in here because their feet hurt, making sure that they feel welcome and understand that our store or stores like ours, hopefully everybody kind of has that same philosophy on making sure that everybody knows that they can get what they're looking for at our store. So starting out with bringing them in, getting a little background as to what they're going to be doing. If they have been dealing with any kind of aches or pains, making sure that we let them know that we are not a doctor. So, and just getting an understanding, having been runners and outdoor enthusiasts working here at the store, we've had kind of probably all dealt with the top 10 list of ailments, probably the top at the list being plantar fasciitis, and then work your way down the chart. So, getting some of that background information and then utilizing our 3D foot scanner. Years ago when we were always really good at fitting people, but there was also this uncertainty of what we were seeing and trying to explain that to the customer. Now it comes up on the screen right in front of them where they hold the most pressure in their feet, what type of foot type they have, are their feet sitting in what's called a pronated stance. And it really has helped us to educate the customer. And then in addition to that, to really have us provide a teaching moment and guide people as to what's making us bring out the shoes that we're recommending. Why are we suggesting a certain brand versus another? All of these kinds of things that are now happening in a real-time conversation while people are seeing their feet and their profile right on a screen in front of them. And being able to share that with them, like that's something they can email to themselves. So, and having access to that information. So, that would be the next step in the fit process is the 3D foot scan. And then the fun part, trying on shoes. And, oftentimes we find that people are wearing their shoes way too small.
Okay.
Which is a pretty eye-opening experience for them. We hear it a lot. I've always been this size. I've never had to change. And then, you start asking, well, do your feet ever fall asleep inside your shoes? Well, yeah, that happens all the time. Well, that doesn't have to happen.
Right, right, right.
Or like, yeah, I did a half marathon last year, and for some reason, all my toenails are gone.
Jeez.
Well,
See that.
you need that space from the front of the shoe. You also want to make sure that you account for any potential swelling that might happen. So once again, the process of getting people fit in the store, we use that a lot. You want to get them fit so that they can stay fit, or so that they can, continue on their journey to become more fit. And that's really what it is. We love when people come back into the store for their next pair of shoes, and that they've had a success story to share with us. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
always important.
that's awesome. I've used the scanner myself there. I think it's really, really good feedback. And you know what you're going with as far as you want a very nicely fitting shoe. You don't have to be at the elite level either, right? A walker, a hiker,
Yeah,
recreational runner like myself, and it's all about injury risk reduction, right? It's
correct.
improving those loads across the foot and reducing the risk for like what you're saying, the plantar fasciitis, the tendonitis, overpronating can cause a whole bunch of issues. So again,
Well, and
yep,
it's also important for us to have good partners like you, so that when people come in here, that they're understanding that they need to treat themselves and their body not at the level of what, a high-end athlete would. Like, you're not getting daily treatment, but you have to work that component into your schedule, just like an oil change, just like a tire rotation. It's always one of those where when people come in and we say, "Oh, well, do you have a PT that you work with?" Or, when's the last time you've gotten some kind of soft tissue treatment? Sometimes if they weren't an athlete growing up and they've never been competitive in a sport, sometimes it's been never.
right. Yeah. Oh, I see it all the time. Yeah. I my caseload split, I would say, between patients that are actually injured and we have to go through rehab process, and then
Hmm.
those that just need a tune-up, where it's the needling, it's the soft tissue release, trigger point release, scraping, assisted stretching. And it kind of goes hand in hand with, I'm friends with some sports massage therapists too. It's like, man, if you're putting those mileage on, or if you're training for something, work like that can only benefit you from the aspect of performance and recovery as well.
Well, and sometimes they find something that you didn't know was a potential issue that was going to come around.
Right.
And they might say, "Hey, I notice your hip flexor is really tight," and that can actually help prevent something from happening, because now they're doing diagnostics on your body,
Right.
which is really important.
Yeah, I actually have a runner coming in today, and I have my runner evaluation. We go through mobility, we go through strength. I'm not saying, let's kick your leg out, I'm going to push it. I'm saying like, look, functional strength. Like, can you do a single leg sit to stand 7 to 8 times on each leg? Can you
Yeah,
do a single leg bridge? Can you do
sure.
20 single leg calf raises? And it's amazing how many patients I see that can't comfortably do some of those movements. And I think, not to get on my soapbox, but strength training, I think, is one area that in the endurance sports, I think it's getting better. I think it's becoming more common, but it's one of those myths that, it's kind of a tough myth to crack, that it's like, yes, you're an endurance athlete. You also need to strength train. It's only going to benefit you in each aspect of the strength training and the endurance sport.
Yeah, when I was running my best, I was either doing a combination of intense yoga with some kind of cross training activity with a personal trainer.
Awesome.
And you're right, because the problem is that those activities don't necessarily show up on Strava.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So,
Right.
or, they don't necessarily also register with being intense or hard enough in comparison to, a long run or a hard race. But you're exactly right that people soon realize how weak and how much they need exactly what you're talking about as soon as they go to attempt to do it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, 6 days a week in the bodybuilding gym. It could be two. I generally say, hey, start with 2 days a week, full body split, if you're a member of a gym or not. I design the program either for at home or for at the gym. If you're nervous about the gym, grab a personal trainer for a couple months, have them show you the machines and the exercises.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
love
it's,
the I love
yeah.
exercise bands. Those to me are the
Yeah.
best. Like,
Oh, you can do a lot just at home with body weight, with some light weights and some resistance bands. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy. And
mhm.
you can certainly strengthen your core, hips, quads, and hamstrings just at home, 45 minutes twice a week. That's all you need.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was talking about plantar fasciitis, and one of the simple things, that I'll just tell people is trace out the ABCs with your toes. And they're like, you mean that's going to be hard? I'm like, try doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. The ankle ABCs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big one. I go through toe yoga with a lot of patients with
Hmm.
these issues where if you've never moved your feet in these different ways, it can be pretty tricky where, you're doing
Yeah.
isolated big toe extension, you're doing some foot doming. It's tricky if you've never done it. And I think that like you guys are the expert in foot health as well there. It's foot health is huge. It's a very popular topic right now, especially as endurance sports, especially running has really blown up. I want to ask, have you noticed like in the millennial generation, so I'm 32, and what I've noticed in my generation is that running clubs, halves and fulls are very, very popular right now. Maybe the most they've been ever. Do you see that as well? Like, what are your thoughts? Maybe it's just because it's the cohort I'm around.
No, I would tend to agree that, I think in the 80s and early 90s, we always kind of have these like phrases or definitions of the time that we're in, and there was, a lot of people would say the running boom. And I
Okay.
think the running boom happened because people found that it was easy to do right from your house,
Right.
and then you had all these companies making actual shoes that didn't make it like hard on your body, even though they weren't the technology that we're experiencing today in shoes. They still made it a lot easier for people to get into the sport. And, you know, a common phrase you'll see a lot too will be, you know, running our sport is your sport's punishment.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
that's what a lot of people grew up you made a mistake, you didn't run a play correctly, you weren't paying attention, go do a
Yeah.
lap.
Yeah, dude, sprint down and back,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you guys have been messing around all practice. Now we're going to do, you know, down and backs until somebody, can't do it anymore.
Throws
Or
up.
whatever, whatever it is. So it's always these outcomes that were sought to punish through
Right.
running.
Yeah.
And now it's not that way. So going back to your point about younger people, they're, throughout, well, probably even when they start sports at a young age, whether it's, lacrosse, whether it's soccer, whatever they're into growing up, running is a key component to that now. It's
Right.
not used as punishment anymore. So they're used to running already. And then a lot of times what happens is they, graduate from high school, and now the sports that they grew up playing are no longer, there's intramural and things of that nature,
Yeah, it's
but
more limited for sure.
correct. So, it's always that, oh, my friend is doing it. Or now you have, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he just popped up in my feed this morning. He's the one who runs the 240 marathons in jeans.
Oh yeah, the jeans guy. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
So, like you have these influencers who are making running kind of like a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And more than ever before, you can really show your personality through like wild looking running apparel.
For sure. Yeah, there's some
You
cool
know,
stuff you could buy.
socks, you can have your own identity and be your own person. You're not just blending in at the start line anymore. I would have never thought that I would have seen people running races in bucket hats.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like to me, that's like what you wore when you went fishing. And then like now, people are winning races wearing bucket hats.
Sure. Yeah.
So with no fishing lures in them, like it's wild. So I think, you know, running is no longer viewed as something that only, high level athletes can do, whether it's cross country or track, and that, you can show up to a race, run your own pace, and everybody's there cheering you on.
Right.
So it's a great community. It is very supportive. That's something we always want to make sure is that, like, when somebody comes to one of our events, that they know from the front to the back, everybody's going to have the same experience and have a great time.
Yeah, I think with social media, running's gotten to be cooler, cool again, right? With
Mhm.
some of the hybrid athlete thing is super popular right now with CrossFit guys kind of going into CrossFit. Now they're doing these long runs.
Mm-hmm.
The apparel's super cool. You guys got a lot of cool stuff in your store for sure.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's, and then you go into the shoes, like the design and the, um, the technology that is in shoes these days. People will take them outside because we'll let people take them outside and test run them up and down the
Yeah.
sidewalk, and they'll come back in, and it's like they saw an alien spacecraft outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they come in and their eyes are like all wide and they're like, "Oh my gosh." I'm
Yeah.
like, "What?" They're like, "I never felt anything like this before." And I'm like, "Yeah." And you know, and it's not like the shoes are built to last forever. So, 3 to 500 miles and they're worn out for most people. But yeah, I mean, it's made it so much easier for people to run longer and faster and hopefully with less injury than ever before. The shoe technology is awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think everyone needs a carbon plated shoe?
I don't think so. I mean, the carbon plated shoe started out as a race specific design, and now it's made its way into everyday trainers to the point now where we actually sell some shoes that we would consider what's called a super trainer. So there's pros and cons. I think just like, a mechanic with a whole array of tools at their disposal, you pick and choose how those types of different shoes can come into play in your routine. I always recommend to rotate a few different kinds of shoes. And then if you did a long run and you're going to go out the next day and do a recovery run, maybe one of those high cushion carbon super trainers is a great way to, have it as a recovery. I've been just this past year, like I looked at all the shoes that I have that I've been running in, um, and the least expensive one at retail would be $190. And I was like, whoa. I was like, that was crazy moment for me because I'm like, holy crap, every shoe I have is around $200. And like the other thing is it's hard once you start running in shoes like that to go back to
Go
something that
back
doesn't.
like a $50, yeah.
Especially an old man like me, like to feel a little bit more pep in the step is nice, and you also kind of have these moments of like, man, why couldn't I have been, why couldn't these shoes have come out 10, 15 years
Right.
ago? Because now you're missing all the fun. But yeah, I think it's nice to be able to tell people that those shoes exist, and if they're comfortable spending that type of money, it's that's the other thing is when you're coming into the store, when you're entering into the sport and you're getting shoes, the most expensive pair is not always the best pair. So that's where we really do a good job of letting people know, educating them as to where they might want to start, where they might want to begin with their running shoe journey. And it's not always necessarily going to those super expensive shoes right away.
A question I get from patients is, does a good insole increase the longevity of a shoe?
So from our standpoint, I would say in our sample sizing of who should be using an insert and who benefits from using an insert, I would say it's about 75% of the time taking out the stock insert that comes with the shoe and replacing it with an over-the-counter makes a huge difference. I don't run in a pair of shoes without a pair of inserts in them. And then there's always the question, oops, sorry about that. There's always the question about what's the difference between an over-the-counter and a custom orthotic? And for a lot of people, the over-the-counter is perfectly fine. Obviously, if you start getting into a situation where you're dealing with a lot of differences between what's going on, maybe with a leg length discrepancy or something of that nature, that's where maybe you would seek out, going to the custom orthotic, but utilizing an insert can extend the life of the shoe. It cannot bring a pair of shoes that's worn out back to life. But so how I'll usually rotate it is when I get a new pair of shoes, I take my inserts from an older pair of shoes and put them in. This way I'm not changing things at once. And then I kind of keep that rotation. Typically an over-the-counter insert's going to last about 2 pairs of shoes.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I've read a lot of articles, because when we go back to that talk about rotating shoes, and what you see a lot of times is people will come in and say, "Oh, I knew I needed a new pair of shoes because my knee started bothering me." And it's like, well, why are you waiting for like a potential injury to let you know when you need new shoes? Like,
That's the bane of my existence.
And then you also, what happens is like you've put so many miles on a pair of shoes that now biomechanically, when you go put on that new pair of shoes, it's changing things.
Right.
And, sometimes you'll hear, "Oh, I got the new version of the exact same shoe I was wearing and it made my legs hurt." Well, you got that new pair of shoes and your old pair also had 800 miles on them. So like, let's give it a little bit of time and make sure that it's actually the shoe and just not your body getting used to a new pair of shoes again.
Yeah, readjusting. Right. All right, last question for you. What is your favorite trail in Cleveland? Maybe one that everyone can enjoy, or maybe it's a really kick-ass trail that's challenging.
Well, the Buckeye Trail will always hold a special place in my heart just because I've had so many great experiences with running friends, dogs that I've had over the years running there. So probably my favorite trailhead to start a run from would be Pine Lane, which is right off of 303. And it's called Pine Lane because just over a mile in, you hit a long corridor of pine trees, which is really cool. And it's only maybe a 10-minute drive from my house, and it's a smaller parking lot. So, the amount of people who can start from that trailhead is always a lot less populated. So I would say Pine Lane Trailhead, and then head towards Boston Store. So you'll be heading north and then making your way. The cool thing about that trail is that it pipes you right into the heart of the national park at Boston Mills Visitor Center. And then you continue north, and then you're in Brecksville. And if you look at this picture right behind me, that's a trail that's a quarter mile from our store here in Brecksville. So I would say anything, you're not going to ever be disappointed with a trail. The disappointment would be is if you didn't get to go out onto the trail. So
I like that. I like that. Well, Vince, thank you very much for your time. I'm due for some shoes here soon, so I need to get back in, get
all
scanned.
right. Well, when you're ready, you know where to find us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for the time. Again, Vince is out at Vertical Runner, Cleveland. You got 2 locations, correct?
Brecksville and Hudson, correct.
Brecksville and Hudson. Yep. And anyone that is interested in some trail runs, check out Western Reserve Race Series. They got a whole bunch of events left for the year. If you need to volunteer as well, it's fun as well. Get out there and help.
Yep, always at our store you can find one of these, a good events calendar. So any questions, come in and visit us, even just to check us out. We're looking forward to seeing some new faces here.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Vince.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.